pretty bad.
Yemen, we've done quite a bit of overthrowing governments in that portion of the region, many in the last few decades. And so, look, I mean, to say that you have, I don't exactly know, where, at least the claim, I'm a radical libertarian here, man. So I really don't believe in much of government being legitimate at all. But the idea that, I think the general view of things is that we view the legitimacy of government as being derived from the people, that I don't think actually makes any sense, but that's kind of the belief in the Western world. I don't know what the invitation of the Saudi government means in terms of legitimacy, so we have a right to be there. Yes, the dictatorship that we prop up and keep in power allowed us to be there. So I guess that's true. No, I'm not suggesting...
Dictatorship of Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, the dictatorship allowed us to be there, but I mean, we should have listened to the terrorists.
This is not what happened in Saudi Arabia, bro. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is the problem with libertarians.
What? They're too smart?
It's always the same dumb talk of, oh, well, we're just going around and telling people what to do, and, just let them decide what they want to do. And, every government ever in the world that was probably installed by America, and, why can't we just let the people decide what they want to do? And something happened in the world, it's probably our fault. We got to stop meddling with all these other people that just want to exist. Can you please shut up?
Terrorists should get a veto. If we are doing something that is moral, that is correct, and that is within the interest of the United States of America, and that comes with the price that terrorists are going to be mad at us and want to attack us, well then, I don't think we should just allow them to bully us out of doing that. In other words, if the terrorists actually had a problem with the fact that America is just such a darn free place, and wanted to attack us for that, well, then we got to fight them. Screw that. We're not going to allow terrorists to have veto power over what we do.
Why is Dave Smith calling for war? Oh, why is he such a war hawk?
Why is he getting back to that talking point again? he makes no sense. I really do not understand what makes people listen to this guy. He is completely out of his depth, and he completely abandoned the discussion and went back to the earlier talking point, which has nothing to do with the current one anymore.
I think is that if you recognize that this policy comes with the cost of these people hating you so much, maybe we should re-examine this policy. And we can sit here and say, look, in the same sense that if all the propaganda that Joseph Stalin used to put out about how racist America was, which he loved that. And he would put out all his propaganda about how horrible black people were treated in the South in America. And, now any of us could look at this and be like, okay, the biggest hypocrite in the world, Joseph Stalin, you care about human rights or something like that. But that at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't go, you know what? It is actually pretty messed up the way we're treating black people in America. Maybe we ought to examine that. That's not me giving Stalin veto power over American policy. It's just pointing out that, number one, if you were in the Cold War space, you're giving them a giant propaganda talking point here. And it's also a bad policy. It's wrong what you're doing. So yeah, you should stop that. I've heard it argued by some.
Okay, wait a minute. So Joseph Stalin was just propagating certain things, and he was just hypocritically using those talking points for his own purposes. He actually didn't properly, or in a just way, acknowledge that we as Americans have problems which he is in a position to fix. Therefore, he's criticizing that. So he was just using talking points in order to justify his hate and his global policies. Okay, good. Now the same thing is true for the Taliban, and the same thing is true for Al Qaeda, and they hate us because of Islam. And they were just using fake talking points, like the issue of Saudi Arabia, in order to justify their Islamic hate. There you go. Problem solved, Dave Smith.
Yeah, so what Dave Smith was, the point of his little analogy there is that just as you can point out, yes, of course, Stalin is just saying this stuff for propaganda purposes. Well, the fact that Stalin is saying it doesn't mean that there's not an actual problem. And therefore you can say, hey, we know he's He's just running his mouth because he'll use anything. But maybe there is something here that we need to work on. So the parallel there, it seems like, is, okay, yeah, maybe these guys are just using these maybe the terrorists are using these talking points and complaining about this or that. That doesn't mean we don't have a problem here. What's the problem? That we keep interfering in what's going on in other places in the world. Now, here's the thing. Guess what? If you don't think that Islam seriously got a problem, you would be wondering, why are we interfering in all these places? If you understand that Islam is an ideology that calls for your violent subjugation and encourages its adherents to relentlessly seek the overarching goal of subjugating you, you might want to be on guard against it, right? You might want to be proactive in dealing with the sort of in dealing with the situation. It's not going to go perfectly. Things never do. So you're going to be like, oh, well, I think it's in our best interest to do this in this country and stuff. Sometimes it's not going to work out very well. Well, what's the idea? We'll just crawl over here and let Islam just what? Just take over until we're like the last nation standing, and then we have to deal with the entire world? Weird.
But once again, he inadvertently, without knowing, actually made the point that Coleman was making the entire time about Al Qaeda. So the problem is not that Al Qaeda might have legitimate grievances about America. The problem is not that they might be pointing out things that might actually be wrong. Being hyper interventionist and all these things, they might actually be wrong. That's not the point. The point is that there is something greater behind Al Qaeda using those talking points, and that is their fundamental hate for the disbelievers, or the disbelievers being close to their lands, and that is why Al Qaeda is using those talking points. They're using those talking points as an excuse in order to perpetuate and justify their hate against the disbelievers, just as Stalin used correct talking points in order to perpetuate his global communist ideals and his hate for the West. So Dave Smith made the entire point that was being made against him without even realizing it.
No, he wouldn't. Dave Smith is super genius on all topics.
Incredible.
Not exactly sure if this is true, but that actually had that was a big part of the civil rights movement and getting like the national security apparatus on board with it, because they wanted to plug up that hole in the
I know what you're thinking. Come on. Oh man.
Propaganda war. I'm not sure if that's right or not. But the point is that, no, I'm not saying the terrorists get a veto over it.
I don't think that's right. I think that was a very minor factor in my opinion.
Yeah, that might be right. I'm really, honestly, not sure about it. I've heard it argued before. But regardless, there certainly were people who wanted to plug up that hole in the
And those people were the all zoot. There certainly were people who wanted to zoot that hole. Why, man? He knows what he's saying. He's sitting here thinking, you know what? David Wood and AP are going to be watching this later because we're talking about Islam. So let me drop in a bunch of obvious zoot openings for jokes because I'm a comedian. Shame on you. Shame on you for tarnishing such a noble show as ours. It's your perverted line.
propaganda war. Not saying that that's what percentage, that had to do with it actually going through. But I would say that I'm not suggesting bin Laden get to dictate our policy. I'm saying that when bin Laden states his list of grievances, and they are, you have your military bases in our Holy Land. You prop up Israel, who mistreats the Palestinians. You've been
You make mischief. You make mischief. Okay. Now talk more about making mischief, and then, of course, why he thinks he is obligated, even if it's a country telling you to do it. Why he believes it's not allowed, because you are making mischief in a Muslim land. Go ahead.
slaughtering children in Iraq for the last, I guess, decade at that point. And whatever, go through. You prop up brutal dictators in the region.
We didn't intervene soon enough in Bosnia.
Right.
So they're not they're not anti-U.S. military intervention. They just want it specifically prescribed in their.
Yes, but I'm not a bin Laden mate. I'm not coming on here to. tell
not
you that
calling
I
you
think
bin
he was
Laden.
no, but I'm not saying he was right about everything, and I'm not claiming that bin Laden was a non-interventionist libertarian like myself. I'm saying I, as an American who cares about this country remaining free and prosperous and safe, I can look at this list of grievances and say, yeah, Coleman, that one about us not intervening enough is complete nonsense.
I just need to say something important before we continue. I would advise for self-proclaimed proud libertarians to stop using "I am a libertarian" as a bragging talking point, because it actually does the opposite effect. Thank you.
The one about us killing a whole bunch of Iraqi kids, he's got a point on that. So the one about us propping up Israel.
Here's what I want to say, Dave.
Well, let me just real quickly, I'll just end this very quickly. It goes, this is kind of the whole spirit of George Washington's farewell speech. That it's like, look, you get involved.
Osama bin Laden was basically George Washington.
In all these entangling alliances, and it causes nothing but disaster for your own country. So yes, I think it's reasonable to look at some of those grievances and go, we should have no part in any of this.
So a few things, and then I want to move on to Ron Paul's other big pillar. Sure. You said the big awakening for you was this Ron Paul thing of why they hate us. And I'm really addressing myself to that.
And I have to say, Ron Paul may be a genius. This is like Dave Smith. Ron Paul may have been completely correct on all kinds of political issues for all I know. On this issue, Ron Paul had no clue what he was talking about. You can even agree with a lot of that people get ticked off about the United States being the world police. That's all true. But to think that the particular reaction of these Muslim terrorist groups isn't based on Islam and that Islam is not the problem here, that's idiotic and dangerous, and Ron Paul had no freaking clue what he's talking about. And now you have Dave Smith repopularizing a theory that I thought was basically dead because it was tried and it failed miserably and led to ISIS. And now he's bringing it back so we can do the same stupid thing over again.
Because he's very intelligent.
Yeah.
That point, very simply, if Al-Qaeda did not believe in a Salafist extreme Islamist ideology, which is the most radical corner of Sunni Islam, I'm not saying it's all of Islam, not even most of it. Take away that one ingredient, we could do everything else the same in the Middle East as we had done.
Please,
overthrowing, backing the overthrow of Iran, the tough sanctions on Saddam Hussein, which caused a humanitarian crisis, putting our troops in Saudi Arabia, and they would not have flown planes into our buildings. That is my claim. That's my claim. And I think, and I'm addressing myself to this question of why they hate us. I agree with you. It's not.
He should have posed that as a question to Dave Smith.
In other words, said, if Islam did not have these teachings about making mischief in a Muslim land and about having to carry out the Islamic penalties for making mischief and having those connected to the people who actually fund the mischief making, which is the civilians and so on. And if you didn't have Muhammad saying, I've been made victorious with terror, and if you didn't have these overarching commands to violently subjugate the world so that people aren't allowed to say blasphemous things anymore, if you didn't have all of that, would those planes have been flown into the buildings? And the only thing Dave Smith could say here in his defense is, yes, because the Jews would have done it anyway. But apparently he's not one of the crazy conspiracy theorists. And because Jews love to dance anyway, what are they going to do? Not dance?
It was the perfect opportunity to dance for them.
Yeah. So AP was saying that should have been as a question. Do you think they would have attacked us anyway? Let's see what he says here, though.
Hate us for our freedoms. It's that they hate us because they have a very powerful ideology, which makes them prejudge any actions by what they consider to be non-Muslim, Christian crusader, etc. And to me, it's crucial to understand if this issue of why they hate us, in fact, is important. And I'm not sure, I don't think that we can live with, I don't think the world, I don't just mean America, I don't think the world can live with a foreign policy that factors in the worst, most destabilizing elements of other societies, right? Because the Saudi regime, complain about their human rights all you want, and obviously one can write a book, and books have been written on that. They have a much better chance of ruling Saudi Arabia and ruling it in a way so that the people flourish than the Bin Ladenites.
Oh, so the point he's making there is, yeah, you can not like Saudi Arabia, and you can think their government is a dictatorship and so on, and simultaneously think it's better that they're in charge than a bunch of freaking like flat out terrorists, like an actual Al-Qaeda terrorist group. And therefore it's in your interest to keep them, to keep the terrorists from taking over entire countries. What do you say?
That's true. The funny thing is that Saudi Arabia are also Salafis, just kind of a different strain or different type of it. Because Al Qaeda would be the more extreme version of Salafism, which relies less on politics and stability, but rather more on picking up the sword and fighting for it. Whereas the Saudi Arabian version, they weren't primarily Salafi, but have been stabilized under Salafism, or what is called Wahhabism, to establish Salafi Islam as the dominant force and to forbid anyone else from trying to subvert it or change it. But their Salafism is also why they have such brutal human rights violations, despite having relative harmony.
And if it were the case that in Korea, with our troops there, if there was some Korean terrorist group that said we can't have these Americans on sacred Korean soil anymore, it would not make sense to listen to that terror group over the Korean government and risk taking away our deterrence and make our foreign policy basis on that decision when the Korean government is trying to get rid of these groups anyway in order to create flourishing societies. So I think we have to be on the side of the elements in these societies, these developing societies, that are trying to haltingly and with many foibles bring their countries forward and make their countries prosperous.
Yeah.
Okay, last word.
So idea there is, yep, you can look at a bunch of disastrous countries and so on and still say, hey, some of these places are more likely to develop and make improvements under certain regimes than they are under a flat-out terrorist regime. And guess what? We've actually seen that in Saudi Arabia. We've actually seen progress in Saudi Arabia in terms of women's rights and so on. Like to see more. Yeah, but let's say that we've seen more progress, let's say, in Saudi Arabia in terms of women's rights than in Afghanistan, where it's the reverse. They're crushing women there.
And then let's get to the other.
There's also been never a Iggy Azalea concert in Afghanistan. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why aren't the Taliban allowing Iggy Azalea to come and twerk in front of them?
That's the question.
Yeah. Oh, they'll sit there and bang 9-year-olds, but and goats, but not can't have a girl twerking.
Yeah, I guess I just am fundamentally unconvinced by this assertion that Islam is this necessary ingredient. I mean, there's been
radical Salafi Islam. I just want to be very precise.
Well, I don't know. The Iranians
I'll just say Islam
seem to have a lot of resentment toward us for overthrowing their government.
Oh, by the way, sorry, just to clarify, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I mean, any ideology, which many ideologies could fit this hole. It's not only Sunni.
Stop it.
Sunni Islam. Other
I don't think
ideologies
it's only.
could fit.
I don't think it's only Islam. To be honest, I mean, look, violence is used all the time. What about the West and groups who have are oppressed violently often use violence in retaliation. We had slave revolts in this country that were incredibly violent. There's been all types of violence used by every major religion. Maybe not every minor one, but every major religion for sure. I just don't agree with that at all. I think that the obvious...
Yes, Dave Smith. Everyone can be violent. Everyone can be violent. Do you not see the difference between an ideology which says, hey, we encourage everyone, to love your neighbor as yourself, to love even your enemies, and still have human beings who will become violent, maybe kill tons of people? Do you not see the difference between that and an ideology that says, fight those who do not believe in Allah? And I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah. Again, going back to the, guess what? Are there Christians who beat their wives? Yep. Are there Jews who beat their wives? Yep. Are there atheists who beat their wives? Yep. Do you not understand the difference between an ideology which says you don't treat women that way, even though people still will, and on the other hand, an ideology that says you beat your wives into submission? Do you not see any difference there, Dave Smith? Child marriage. Guess what? You've had child marriage in various places in the world. Who are the world's leading defenders of child marriage? Guess what? They're Muslims. And why? It's because the prophet had sex with a 9-year-old girl, married a 6-year-old, and he's the supreme pattern of conduct in that religion. So could all these guys, Daniel Hakikachu, the Muslim cowboy, could all of these guys defending child marriage have something to do with their religion? Keep in mind, they're not talking about this, but if you ask Dave Smith, hey, Dave Smith, we've got all these guys and they're all defending child marriage. We've got all these Dawa guys. They're all defending child marriage. They're all saying there's nothing wrong with having sex with a 9-year-old girl. Why are they saying that? Could that have a connection to their religion teaching that it's okay? Dave Smith's response obviously would be, what are you talking about? Other people have done it. What about this person over here? What about that king over there? See, it has nothing to do with the religion. My goodness, this is stupid reasoning, dude.
There is a stereotype in the world that a lot of Americans are very clueless about the rest of the world and other religions and all that. I would say that it's often not true, but in Dave Smith's case, it is one of those instances where it is like he has this notoriously strange attitude of we did these things as an American. We did these things. I'm not sure why he calls himself a libertarian. Maybe because he believes in libertarian, childish politics and all that. But he very much sounds like these liberal college kids who, behind everything, always find the fault in America, in us.
Specifically the oppressor, and everyone else is the victim.
Yeah, no, people do strange things here and there, but what about us, we, America? I mean, we did some things here and there as well. Yeah. Gosh, can you please be quiet, man?
Yeah, and then he has this smug look on his face.
Yeah.
You think that just because Islam commands these things, that it has something to do with it? Well, how do you explain other people doing the things too? See how stupid you are? My goodness, dude.
Element that when missing, none of this would happen, is America's domination and killing of innocent people in this part of the world. When the King Crane
we get again, it, and you hate America.
Again,
we get it.
Before the United States did anything you've mentioned, they already hated us and declared it. And they said it's because of their book, which you're saying has nothing to do with any of this.
Because of the book.
Went to Syria after World War I, and they held this huge polling apparatus that tens of thousands of people were interviewed, and they overwhelmingly voted that they wanted America to rule over Syria in a League of Nations mandate. And it's really the opposite of what the George W. Bush administration said. It's not, they don't hate us for our freedom. They actually kind of loved us for our freedom. They viewed America as the good guys. America were the ones, the city on a hill, who were all about liberty. They hated the British and they hated the French. Why is that? Well, because they were dominating them. It's like the most natural human tendency on earth to hate the people who dominate you and violently oppress you. And it's quite often the case that people embrace violence in response.
Let me go ahead and grant. Pretty natural to want to respond in certain circumstances with violence. Pretty natural for lots of guys to think, oh man, my wife just won't shut up. I'll just slap the crap out of her. That's pretty natural for a lot of guys. There's a difference between something being natural and having a shared ideology that actually promotes and encourages it, right? You can have things that are natural, and yet you're told, hey, I don't care if you feel like that. I don't care if you have a natural inclination to do that. I don't care if you have a natural inclination to punch a natural inclination when someone disagrees with you to punch them in the face. We don't care. You don't get to do it. Stop it. Stop doing that. You don't see the difference. If you don't see the difference between that and yes, you respond to anything that you don't like with violence. I don't know what to do, man.
That said, I have to say that this was the first coherent point that he actually made during this entire discussion.
No, all his points were awesome and coherent.
I don't think that's unique to Islam. I think that's more of a thing that brings us all together. I don't mean to be such an egalitarian on your show here. I assure you I'm not one. But I think that is one of the things that humans have in common. So I just don't see it as, violence. I think that violence, we like to distinguish between terrorism and counterterrorism, but that's really usually not much of a distinction, or at least there's usually not a very objective definition for it. Israel is quite comfortable using lots of violence right now. They're quite comfortable killing a building full of innocent people to get a guy that they don't like. And, what
this reminds me of? When Donald Trump got elected, there was this time where whenever there was a regular liberal commentator, all they would talk about was Donald Trump. I mean, can't you believe Donald Trump? I mean, there's something going on the other side of the world, and they'll be like, this just reminds me of how terrible Donald Trump is. This is basically what he sounds like, just in respect to Israel.
There's been acts of terrorism. Some argue Israel introduced terrorism into the pre-Israeli Zionist settlers introduced terrorism.
Jews invented terrorism. You just heard it, ladies and gentlemen.
Into the region. I don't think it's something that's unique to Islam. And I don't think,
no one said terrorism, wife beating, violence, killing people you disagree. No one said that is unique to Islam. What is unique about Islam is that it encourages and promotes these things as from God. Yes, various human beings can do the exact same thing. There's one ideology that says, and God wants you to do all these things. He wants you to do these things. Other people are telling you don't do these things. No. Allah's telling you definitely need to do these things. And that's a serious, serious, serious difference. If you don't believe me, Dave Smith, just do a little experiment. Take 10 husbands and 10 wives and tell those men, hey, you may occasionally have an urge to slap your wife. Don't do it. Tell them that their entire lives. And take another group and says, hey, if your wives do something you don't like it, God wants you to beat them until they obey you. Tell that group the same thing. Tell that group that. And then let them go on for a while and see if you spot a difference. And of course, you will spot a difference. And you'll say, hey, it's actually a problem. It's actually a problem if you teach people that God wants you to beat women into submission. And Dave Smith will respond, but other people beat wives too, so it can't have anything to do with commanding. This is stupid, man.
I'm going to try to experiment tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Essentially do agree with your point that most of these dictators in the in the Middle East are preferable to the bin Ladenite head choppers. I agree with you. And in fact, I've been very critical of our foreign policy for siding with the bin Ladenite head choppers in Libya, Syria, Yemen.
This is so embarrassing.
I guess not in Iraq, but next door in Syria. I certainly don't think we should be backing the bin Ladenites either. But that it's not a choice between do we prop up brutal dictators or do we back the bin Ladenites who oppose them, which seems to.
Do you understand what's happening here, Dave Smith? This is very embarrassing as an outsider from looking at it from the outside. You actually think, oh, yeah, I'm making this fantastic point, and Coleman and I actually agree on this. You actually have no idea what Coleman is saying. And that is very embarrassing. You just think you agree here on this point because you're smug and you can't listen. This is very embarrassing.
Sounds about right. And again, I haven't seen the rest of it. This is the beginning. Apparently, it was all downhill for Dave Smith after this.
This is very embarrassing.
Yeah, we're on the last.
Now I see why people are saying he absolutely destroyed Dave Smith. I haven't seen it, but I get it now. There's a huge intellectual difference here. Huge.
Be the binary choice that the American foreign policy establishment has been working within. But there is a third option there, which is that we don't have to do any of this. It's not in our national interest. It leads to horrific outcomes. We get nothing out of it. And it was never, and it's also just completely unconstitutional. It's not at all what our government was formed to be. We're not supposed to be the world empire. We're supposed to be a limited constitutional republic. And the people never got a vote on this. There was never a referendum on, do we want to become a world empire?
This is why I
and
like
in
Ron
fact,
Paul.
if you look down track list of American elections, the anti-war candidate seems to win just about every single time. Whereas if you run back the presidential elections, who was the more anti-war? Was it Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Or at least was perceived as more anti-war. It was Donald Trump. He wins. Him or Hillary Clinton, Trump, he wins. Obama destroys McCain. George W. Bush in the year 2000 ran on a humble foreign policy, no nation building. And it's like, I don't think the American people want this. And I think if we ever actually, and I don't think it's good for the country. So I'll wrap on that.
All right. So that was Dave Smith explaining Islam and how we should all listen to Ron Paul, even if there's no connection at all to reality in anything he's saying.
I have never listened to Coleman Hughes before. I didn't know who he was. Somebody that I appreciate a lot sent me an interview of his, or a discussion of his earlier, which I might listen and look into. But just from this here alone, just from this exchange alone, I have a lot of respect for the guy. He seems very smart and sharp and good and on point. As for Dave Smith, this is one of many times that I've actually listened to him speak about something, and he sounds as clueless as he always does. And please, man, please, when it comes to something like Islam, especially Islam's impact on the world, stop talking trash. Stop talking nonsense. Inform yourself on the matter. Stop trying to educate the masses on something so crucial. It is stupid. It is dangerous. It is misguiding. Just let it go. Don't do it. Leave it to others. Stick to, praising and having posters of Ron Paul on your wallpapers. You sound very, very dumb. And yeah, that's it.
Pretty bad, pretty bad. So that was the entire discussion of Islam, as far as I know. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's the people who know the least about Islam who consider themselves the experts. It's the only topic I'm aware of. It's the only topic I'm aware of where the less you know about it, the more of an expert you think you are. And I'm not even talking about Dave Smith there. Just over the years, right? There's various presidents will jump up and say, "Ha, that group is not Islamic. I'm telling you what real Islam is." And they have no clue what they're talking about, but they feel confident enough that they are the experts, and the actual jihadis who are carrying out the commands of Allah, they don't know what they're talking about. It's the only topic where the less you know, the more of an expert you are. And the more you know, the less of an expert you are. Like, you wouldn't have this in any other field. If you would never say, "Oh, the less you know about math, the more of a mathematician you are," and the more you know about math, the less of a mathematician. It would just be completely incoherent nonsense. And yet we get to Islam, and it's the one topic where that rule applies. Weird stuff.